you are, Madam Clerk. Good evening, everybody. This is the work session meeting of the Council, Tuesday, February 13th, 2018. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in Borough Hall, by email to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same, as provided by law, of a schedule including the date and time of this meeting. I'd like to remind all members of the public that we have 3 fire exits in our council chambers, 1 on each side of the dais and 1 in the rear. Roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Councilman
Here.
Councilwoman Steve.
Here.
Councilman Keenan.
Here.
Councilwoman Davis and Councilman Papaleo also absent prior notice. Mayor Young.
Here. Okay. Let's start with the discussion items for crosswalks.
Well, Mayor, on Saturday at our budget meeting, we withdrew the funding from the capital list, but it's my understanding we do have an ordinance that would cover these expenses. So, with the permission of the council, I would then look to see what our engineering situation is and get a proposal from Costa Engineering. He's already been engaged through the estimate of the work, but this would be for design purposes.
He also reached out to the county at my request to see if they had any issues, so they don't. So that's a good first step. Like I said, he still has to make sure, I'm sure he's going to do a survey because we don't know where the property lines are on the right-of-way line. We don't want to get into an easement issue. So I'm sure he can break up his proposal into both pieces.
So we'll look for the request for a proposal. Once we have that, we'll come back to the council, check our availability of funds, we'll make an award of a contract, and then the engineering can start.
Very good. 7-Eleven crosswalk. I had spoken to county on this. It was supposed to be done when they repaved Kindercomack and restriped. For whatever reason, it did not get communicated correctly. They say we'll do it when the weather permits. That's where it is. And hopefully that'll be for March 15th is usually they consider their work start time, so they will list that one.
Makes sense.
We'll keep on top of them. Because along that same vein, we got an email from Casey Connors a couple months ago, and it was regarding the crossing time at this crossing here, Continental and Kindercomack. He thought it was too short. I was watching it too. It is too short. So the county is going to come and reprogram the signal to add, I forget how many, some calculation, 5, 6, 7 seconds, whatever they have to do. I also asked them, old ordinance, I had asked to put some money in for more countdown timers. So we are going to put them there too at the same time. And because these timers are on state contract, I've asked them to give me a parts list for all the other lights. Because parts are much cheaper than they were 3, 4, 5 years ago. And we may be able to do all of them. So, and then they'll all be done and upgraded to the best that we can do at this point. So we'll just have to follow up with them and make sure that that gets done. The library renovation, we're going to wait for Mr. Sarlo to come. He's running late. He just texted me he'll be here within 15 minutes. Work session consent agenda. A motion to approve the Recreation Commission's request to place a banner at 140 Kindercomack Road from March 10th to 14th to promote the River Edge Run.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I don't have any report tonight. No information. Unfinished business. Councilman Bartoloni, Community Center, can you give an update?
Sure, Mayor. And Mayor, feel free to jump in at any time if you want. In terms of where we're at with the community center, I have now met with, I believe, all of the interested groups. Going back, I met with library, friends of the library, the Recreation Commission, the Shade Tree Commission, the Cultural Center, SCORE, and I think that may be everybody. If I missed a group, I apologize. But we've met with all the groups. We've gone over the plan several times now with the architect in trying to make some additional changes, and as we've met with some of the constituent groups, particularly Shade Tree and the Cultural Center. Shade Tree obviously wanted us to try and save as many mature trees as possible. So we looked to see how best we could do that, if at all, and that changed the layout a little bit of the parking. And in meeting with the Cultural Center, they were requesting that they have an equal amount of space in the new building as they currently have. They estimated that they have 2,000 square feet of space currently available to them.
That
And
includes the attic and
the attic, the basement, the first floor, second floor. And they wanted to make sure that they had equal amount of space. They had some security concerns if they had an exhibit, so that they would have exclusive use of that large meeting space while an exhibit was going on, and that it could be locked, because they have sometimes historical artifacts or art that belongs to an outside artist that they want to make sure was protected. But the main thing was they wanted to make sure they had an equal amount of space, which simply wasn't, it's simply not possible. There's not an extra 1,000 square feet of space in the plan, nor is there funding available to add an additional 1,000 square feet.
Oh, that's assuming they would accept the 1,000, they wanted
Yes.
2,000, which would be 1/3 of the total building, so.
What is available? What do they mean by available?
Well, the
The
large,
attic and the basement space is not really available for.
I guess
for
it is for
display
storage,
purposes,
well, I
right?
guess for their
they
storage.
say for storage purposes. They wanted an additional 1,000 square feet of space for storage, which would have added at a minimum $100,000 to $200,000 to the cost of the project, which simply just doesn't make that much sense. So we went back to the architect, looked at the layout for the parking lot, and the conclusion I think that we've come up with, at least on the subcommittee, is to keep the cultural center where it stands. Reroute the parking around the leased premises and allow them to continue to operate as they currently do and not be moved into the proposed community center. So that's kind of where we stand with that. And I think we all got a letter from Ms. Sussman, and we also got emails basically, you know, saying that they kind of wanted to keep where they were. You know, utilizing the ability affords us the resources for storage, exhibits, and office space to support community events. And then there was another email that we got recently that I think even went further, kind of indicating that they want to just stay where they are. So it just seems to make financial sense from the borough's perspective. The lease, what we found out when we looked back at the lease was that the lease property that they are entitled to actually ends at the front of the garage. That is not their space under the lease, and I provided everybody with a copy of the survey. And the lease actually goes to say the borough shall retain exclusive use, ownership, and maintenance of the garage and the land area located to the rear of the structure aforesaid. The use by the cultural center of the garage and/or the land area in the half section of the survey annex shall be at the sole discretion of the borough of River Edge. So it's not their space, actually. It's the borough's. It's not part of the lease.
How much longer is the lease?
The lease actually renewed, the original lease expired,
2010.
yeah, several years ago.
Is that lease ever renewed?
I believe it automatically, renews unless terminated.
What's the
Before us.
what's the length of the lease?
Yeah. I mean, like, when does it terminate?
Well, they had 15 years originally?
15 years
1995,
originally.
So it's a year to
2010.
year now, right?
Yeah, basically.
So then, I mean,
Well, the thing is, we don't want to displace them and not be able to accommodate their needs. We can't accommodate their needs, so to accommodate the larger needs of the borough, we have to do it this way for now.
no, I'm a big fan of the cultural center and everything that they provide. I mean, I've been going there for years, and it just seems that we have an opportunity here with this new community center to offer something even greater, and the ability for them to do even greater things, because the space is going to be a much more utilizable space than what is currently available to them. And it just seems to me that, you know, we're putting so much money and so much effort into this, and now we're suddenly just kind of rerouting everything because, you know, there are some concerns, which valid as they may only be concerns for a very short period of time. Once this community center is built, some of these concerns will be allayed automatically. And there's also a question as to where are some of these events that are now taking place in the cultural center going to go once the community center is built. So the schools displaying art for their kids and such, the community center is going to have a lot more space for people to walk around when those displays are ongoing. So it just seems to me, I understand their concerns, and you know, again, I think they've done a great job, but you know, perhaps they should come in here and talk to us a little bit about what's going on and see if there's any other ways that we can deal with this. These are just my thoughts on, you know, what's been presented.
They have made it clear that's not what they want. They want the equivalent space. I've been told that by Mr. Dunsay, I've been told that by Ms. Sussman. And the other thing that they don't seem to want to envision going forward is that when this, like we talked ad nauseum at times, when this community center is online, it's going to be the auspices of the rec department. It's Director of Recreation and Cultural Affairs. We're going to have a cultural advisory committee who will work, and they were supposed to have an automatic seat on that board, as does Mr. O'Connor. He knows that yet, but he's going to have a seat on that board too. So we can actually have some
Or your
coordination.
representative.
So we can have some coordination between all these different groups on these programs, you know, between the schools and the library, and us with the community center, them with the cultural center. And that's not a model they seem to be comfortable with this time. So,
And I invited Mr. Dunsay to come to the meeting tonight to share his concerns.
I'm just concerned that when the cultural center closes down a couple of years down the line, then we're left with this building that we have to continue maintaining.
no, then what's going to happen, it's going to come down eventually, there'll be more parking, because we're going, well, we're able to actually, by not having the building down, we lost parking spaces, obviously, but we're able to reallocate them and come back with even actually a few more. But, you know, depending on the activity of that building, eventually it probably will need more parking, but we didn't want to overbuild it this time. One is taking away more trees and more green space, and the second is cost.
And in looking at the lease, and what we found out is that really the borough's sole responsibility towards that property is snow removal and leaf removal. That's really pretty much our only obligation in terms of maintaining it, paying for it.
We're into a parking lot anyway, right? So we're going to be removing the snow.
Well, and it's not actually much of a, well, the parking lot it's not part of their lease
Right,
anyway,
right,
so. There's really, this snow removal we're talking about is the sidewalk around there, which the borough would do anyway, it's borough property.
Right.
And, you know, the little walkway, I guess, that they have.
So it's not a separate question, I'm sorry, just a separate question. Somebody reached out to me and asked, and I think you answered it at some point, so forgive me, I just didn't remember the answer. Some of the trees were planted with placards in honor of people. Are those trees just, does it matter? It's just, if it's in the wrong place, we're taking it down, and like, or is there anything being done to say, okay, well, this tree may have been dedicated, maybe we'll rededicate another tree or something?
I mean, we've always told the shade tree that trees that can be saved would be saved to the extent that it's economically feasible. I mean, some of the trees, it's $10,000 to move a tree. So it can get very expensive very quickly.
No.
But some of them that you're talking about that are dedicated are specimen trees, And some of them are not very large, so that they can be moved and relocated.
But I think the short answer is yes,
Yeah.
those plaques will be
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah.
We're not
You
gonna
guys
make,
are.
we're not gonna make particularly a dedicated tree from somebody.
No, it'll,
And, you know, it'll be an interesting sort of design, because the islands that'll be in the parking are gonna be around the trees. So it was a little more tricky trying to get the circulation to work with that, but
Yeah.
we thought that was still, as long as it's safe, you know, we'll do what we can to save as many as we can. And most of the big ones, I think, are.
yeah,
gonna
are
be safe.
safe, or being safe. So, you know, we minimize the cost that way. I don't know if you want me to go into the maybe projected timeline?
Can I just want to comment? So they were asking for, let's say, roughly 2,000 feet of additional space, which would have meant that you would have had to either go up or out with the plan.
Yeah.
Which aesthetically, I don't think is what we want to do, especially keeping in mind the existing facility that's there and the residents that are in the surrounding area. So I also think the cost would be beyond prohibitive at this point. We would not be able to move forward with this project, which we all agree is really important. So I think that the cultural center is saying they want to stay where they are. Sounds like the best solution that will allow us to move forward with the larger project. So I just wanted to go on the record and say that, and thank you for meeting with all of those groups.
Okay, I think we're doing a great job, I'm just asking these questions.
Yeah,
No,
no.
and
No,
they're
they're all
valid
valid.
questions,
They're all valid.
I don't want to see the cultural
They
center
were-
not continue with their programming. However, I think this sounds like a solution
this
that
is,
both parties are.
They were looking that perhaps we could shrink down the lobby space, which wouldn't get you the square footage, and they were also questioning the need for that outdoor patio space. Perhaps that could become storage space, but again, it doesn't eliminate the additional cost, and so, yeah, that you would incur.
And I think that outdoor space is very
It's going to be
important.
very
Yeah.
important to recreation
And
programming.
the building itself is 6,000 square feet total. So, you know, for them to want 2,000 of it, or even 1,000, that's a significant section. We were gonna give them, not dedicated space, but, you know, we had an awkward size room, I'd say, to accommodate them, which we don't have to design it that way now. The architect can look at it as a
They
more
just,
functional space, and we're actually gonna probably pick up 2 smaller meeting rooms now, which I think, to me, I think that's a better solution anyway, because the last thing we want is having a big building that no one uses.
and just so everybody knows what they describe their usage to me, they generally have about 9 weeks of programming, where they would, you know, have an exhibit set up and want that space exclusively, which I didn't have an issue with. I told them that that'd be fine. And then I think they have like about 40 weeks of art classes, which, you know, I explained to them we could certainly work around. I mean, that's not a problem. They were like from 3 to 5 in the afternoon, and I was like, that's not a problem. But it was the additional, you know, like you said, the storage space. Do you want me to go over where we're thinking the
Yes.
timeline? So what we're hoping right now is that we will have our first public viewing and presentation by the architect at the March 26th meeting. Then it would go before the land use board on April 4th. Hopefully they don't have any problems or issues, and it would come back to the council on April 9th, at which point the council can adopt the plan and go out to bid, or well, I should say, have the plans drawn up, the actual architectural drawings
Yeah.
drawn up, which we need to have done, and then hopefully we can pressure the architect to get those done as quickly as possible, and we would hopefully be looking to break ground, I want to say October, November, before the ground freezes. So that is the timeline as of right now. So hopefully we can.
And I would just, as an additional item, maybe for the next meeting, we should authorize the architect to proceed with what's considered task 2 under the original proposal. We'll have them task 2, subtask 4, which is preparing the submission for the land use board, and beginning of design development phase. So that would be $20,500. which again, it's already been allocated as part of the project, so. Make a motion to put that on for the next public meeting.
I'll make that
I'm
one.
sorry.
I just want to ask one question about, when would the residents within that 200, is it 200 feet be noticed? Is it for the land use
They
meeting?
wouldn't be
They
noticed.
wouldn't be?
No, it's, because it's not technically a public hearing, we call it capital review.
Mhm.
I think we're certainly going to try to publicize it, but we don't
Okay.
have to do a 200-foot notice. But I think in this case, we will probably at least have a letter written and, at least the immediate area, so.
I think that's
they're
a very
aware.
good idea.
Yes, because you don't, again, the
People
last
may
thing
have
you want is somebody
questions
not
and
to
not-
know what's going on and not have the opportunity to make their opinions.
And hopefully what we'll do after that public meeting, we'll have the plans available here at Borough Hall for people to see, and hopefully if the library's so good, we can have the plan there as well, so people can come in and take a look.
And we'll have to just, again, finalize our financial position to see how much money we already have away, and if we need to
Yeah.
supplement that in the future.
You need a second? I'll second the motion.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. So it's progressing. Is there any other old business?
I don't know if you want to talk about Holland Avenue now, it just seems to come up a lot, and we have time to kill, so. And this eliminates my reports later on, so this is good. I met with traffic and safety last week. One of the large topics that we went over was obviously traffic on Holland Avenue. Mr. Escalise was there. It was the recommendation of the committee with the input from the police department that Holland Avenue be double-striped, as we talked about at budget, that 25 miles per hour be on the roadway itself in in both directions in two places, so going down the hill, going back up, and the placement of 2 additional 25-mile-an-hour street signs. So that's the recommendation as of right now, and if we have the funds available, perhaps another speed monitor.
I think, since the borough of Leonia has created a new paradigm on how to control traffic, it might be something we want to consider. I've spoken to Chief in the past about maybe making some of those streets one-way between, say, 4 and 6 o'clock, so you can't cut through, and that's the reality. That's one of the biggest issues, so I think there are some alternatives with traffic control that we also can look at.
We also talked about contacting Waze and Google and asking them not to place that as a pass-through. So that's something that we can do, pass a resolution, or and Officer Diamond, I think, was actually going to try and reach out to them and get the information as to who to speak to. So.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
This has been going on for a long time, so I'm really pleased that Traffic and Safety is taking some steps to calm the traffic there. I just wonder, is there a standard criteria that was used to put these suggestions forward and implement them? Are we going to use that criteria on other busy roads, whether it's Bogart or Fifth? I just wonder, was there a criteria used?
I would speak from not having direct knowledge, but I'm sure Mr. Garrett, Mr. Ascalise, who is a traffic engineer by training, everything complies with the MTCD. And if the rules are pretty similar for similar type roads, so the same, say, cartway width, same speed limits usually can have the same kind of.
So there's the criteria we can go back to and
Yes.
say,
Yeah, there has to
why
be,
are you recommending this?
there has to be a particular width on either side of the double line. And he talked about if there's parking, if there's not parking, 12 feet on one side, 8 feet on another, so that there is some sort of criteria. We did talk about other traffic calming measures. We talked about a speed table, which is not a speed bump, it's kind of raises down, but the police department wasn't in favor of that, as it presents a problem for them responding to emergency situations, in particular because it's located near the park. The sheriff's department would also have that similar issue as well, and from what I understand, it can be kind of noisy when cars do hit it, yeah.
We're not eliminating any parking on Howland, though?
No,
Okay.
no, I mean, there's some areas where there's already
Right, but
no
no
parking.
changes occurring?
No, and from what I understand, I mean, just, you know, anecdotally, most people don't park on Howland that much anyway, so.
That-
More lately.
That does help slow the traffic down.
Yeah, it does, people do park.
Just for the residents on that, I want to make sure they understand.
No, we didn't
we're
talk
taking
about
any
it,
parking away.
taking any parking.
No.
And will they be noticed about these changes too? Is that something that has
Well,
to
I
happen?
guess as a courtesy we can, because I think we're gonna find some opposition putting double yellow lines, because I had spoken to some residents one time about Fifth Avenue, and maybe just extending it a little bit. And for every person who said yes, there's someone who said no. So we may wind up in a situation like that where it's gonna be partial, depending on what the final consensus is.
Thank you.
I keep giving my report while we wait.
I guess
Mr. Sarlo, but.
On the, I guess we can, under old business, you know, we're still pursuing, trying to get our TV station set up.
Oh.
I have to say, Councilman Bartolone, the name of the vendors,
Yeah.
to reach out to package all the equipment for us, and then we need to reach out to Verizon and see why they have not installed our box yet.
We're waiting for the piece, right?
Yeah.
No, that was Cablevision. That, Verizon, we're not exactly sure why they haven't done it.
And under old business also, tomorrow, we're beginning our interviews for the Recreation and Cultural Affairs Director, and hopefully we'll be able to have somebody in place by April 1st. I think that was the timeline we're trying to have accomplished. I think she saw. Any new business? We'll go back into it. There's just one thing I wanted to bring up, and it's in the context going back to our updating of our master plan, and speaking with the planners, and looking at, obviously, the economy is getting better, there may be more developers willing to develop. It's probably a prudent time to review our old redevelopment plans to see whether they're still applicable, because most of them were laid out 10 or 11 years ago. So markets might have changed, demographics might have changed, usage might have changed, so I think we need to look at the whole, those three plans. And I've also asked them if they can maybe incorporate that into a general study, the whole Kennecott Car, an overview, and identify if there's any other areas, either potential for redevelopment or rehabilitation. So they will basically just do a survey, they'll come back to us and say, we think this might work here, this might work there, and then we can commission further studies, like a formal study through the planning board or the land use board, if something looks like it might be advantageous for the borough going forward. So we had already given them a contract to start this work because of the master plan reevaluation, so they're just going to roll it into that. So I think that's going to be a very positive development too, to see where we can go, particularly the one that looks to the north end of town, where we probably have some areas where we could do some rehabilitation zones and improve our business opportunities and improve our ratables, as we always try to do. That's all I have for now, so, all right, so we're gonna go back to the library renovation, so.
Everyone. So, I'm here with three members of the library board to looking for your support for basically a very small construction project, really small. work on your multi-purpose room. It'll have several functions. It will be very, very flexible because we need it to be flexible because the needs of the community are shifting and changing all the time. In 2016, we had over 9,000 attendees at library programs in the library, community-based programs and library programs. We have a situation where one larger meeting room and a smaller meeting room are really not sufficient to meet the demands of the community. This room that we're talking about isn't just going to be a meeting room, it's also going to be a place where crafting programs, for example, can take place. We're seeing a huge surge in interest in the last several years, and people gathering, get together to collaborate, socialize, as they're engaging in activities such as painting, landscape painting, soap making. We had recently 26 residents attend a soap making workshop. This is the kind of thing you have now in the library, much more than a book signing or a lecture, which in times past was more typical of what you had in the way of library programs. I'm also looking to try to meet the needs of the younger residents, young adults and children. This room would also serve their needs for programming purposes. Another problem we're trying to hit with this project is the problem of noise. I don't know if anybody was on the Rivers Community Group this weekend.
I saw the,
That came out of nowhere, but it's typical. And in our last survey, I'd say the biggest problem people brought up, the biggest complaint was noise. Now, if you talk about sort of blue face about the problem of noise, there's no simple solution to it. And the reason it's happening is because we're busy. We're a successful library, very, very, very busy library. Everyone wants to use the library. And when you get lots of people in there, particularly between 3 and 5 p.m., it gets noisy, and it's not just the kids. You know, we have the tutors. I had a tutor one time complain to me about the noise, and so as I'm politely listening to the tutor complaining about the noise level in the library, I'm thinking, you want to come to the library to make noise, because you object to other people making noise, and you're probably taking a paycheck as well, which we don't allow in the library, by the way, but it's fantastic to govern that. So that's a big problem we're trying to address with this project. Also, the borough has a historic collection. Historic Commission has a collection of documents, postcards, photographs that are historically important. We want and feel that there's a strong need for this collection to have a dedicated space that is accessible to the staff, but also to the public, where it is kept safely also, and where the Historic Commission, if they get grant funding, which they seem to be getting every year these days, can work on the collection and make it more accessible and catalogue it. So that collection is growing. A lot of it is housed in the library, but it's inaccessible to everybody except members of the Historic Commission and library staff. So we want to make improvements there, and we need a dedicated space to do that, and we want to do that for the Historic Commission. The most obvious place to have this collection is in the library. I initially did present some not very ambitious or less ambitious plans to the library board that talked about a wall that did not quite reach, that there were temporary walls, less permanent walls, should we say, that did not quite reach the ceiling. But then the problem was the noise. We really felt the noise was a big problem we're trying to address. So my next step was to talk to a designer. Could we come up with a design that we would be able to solve our problems with a design. And our designer that we used 5-6 years ago recommended that because of the AC issues and lighting, we really need to consult an architect. So we have proposed contract with an architect who specializes in library stuff. I feel would be good. Had Mr. Sarlo look over that contract and says it's okay. We like to sign it and get to work with the architect.
The only question I have in the contract, and let Alan answer it, is that since it's 4850, because being the chief financial officer, would he require another bid, or if he's comfortable with that at 4850 because it's under the threshold? I assume it's
One other bit.
fine on that. You have another bid, so you've qualified.
Yeah.
So you've qualified on that.
It's professional services.
Yeah, that's true.
Not a huge number.
No, that's good. You answered my question.
So you came back and also advised us that we would need certification from the mayor and council to make this project possible.
Yeah, so I prepared a memo. I don't know if it's been circulated. I only circulated to Councilman, who's the liaison to the library board, also to the mayor and to Alan. So basically, the statute, which is 40:54-25, the library obviously has the authority to construct buildings. That's within their purview. But before they expend money, they need to come to the mayor and council, and they have to certify the amount of money necessary for the project, the amount of money that they have on hand to fund the project, and in addition to their capital reserves that they're going to apply to the project, and the estimated amount necessary for the maintenance of the library for the balance of this year. So at that point in time, if you're okay with the cost, you would adopt a resolution permitting them to proceed. Okay.
We don't know the cost yet. One of the things that I personally will help us with is the cost. We have 31,000 in donated funds. On top of that, we would hope that maybe the Friends might be able to help us a little bit. And also, there's the grant program that's with the state, which is now starting to put into place. That was voted into law last November. So we'd also be hoping for funding from that. But if we don't know what the project will cost. If we don't have all the funding that we need to complete everything that we want in the project, we would probably do what we could and fundraise for that. In other words, if we don't get $80,000 to do this, we only have 50. And 50 covers, let's say, the construction of the walls and the flooring and removal of shelving. We go ahead and do that and work over several years on furnishing. As I understand it, the furnishing will be a big part of this cost.
My only main question would be, Dara, is this room would have to be designed for ultimately to be a quiet space, because all the programming that you're speaking of, I think we all anticipate that's going to be under the auspices of the Recreation Commission, and these are things that I would assume would be more natural under at the community center that certainly will be built and up by next year. With regard to the Historic Commission, I know our borough historian has mentioned to me several times that the museum down in Newbridge Landing is going to be constructed also within the next year. And if we really have some true artifacts that we want to preserve, it's probably best that it's housed there where they're going to have a curator and the right kind of ways to preserve it, temperature and all those things that they need to consider for preserving documents.
We're not going to have a librarian in the redone.
But it's going to be a bona fide museum, so it's...
So without a person to help give access to the collection.
I don't know that's
We're up to
true.
50 hours a week. That means the collection's accessible 50 hours a week. We're not going to
I wish I could believe that people would want to access it 50 hours a week, because I think it's important. I don't know whether that interest would be there for that, but again, it's a real museum with it's going to be curators. It's going to have people who are going to be working on historic research and things like that. I know they use people from Berkeley Community College, so it's going to be an active place. I don't think it's something that's going to be open one day a week, but that hasn't been determined as far as I know. So,
And then you just the whole program, you've got a program. Most of the programs that we do, right, one or two of them may end up going to a new community center. I don't anticipate most of them going to the community center.
well, I would think that all those art and crafting type programs within the community center. You know, basically, if it's not going to be library literacy based, it's going to fall under the jurisdiction of the recreation department. That's the intent. If it's, I'm sorry?
If it's not,
library or literary connected, which the mission of the library, I think it's going to fall down. It's going to fall down on the side of the community
our
center.
mission is broader than I think what you imagine.
Well, then I don't know if you're appreciating what the mission of the community center is going to be, and obviously that's the whole point of. You heard the discussion about the cultural center. There's going to be a lot of overlapping, and eventually everything has to be consolidated to this one building. If we don't do that, we don't have any need to have it. Because to have it as a big meeting space, that's where you only need it for once in a while. But, you know, we want to have, there'll be programming for seniors during the day. There'll be programming for kids after school. I'm sure there'll be adult programming also. That's, you know, all been talked about. So everything has to be done, looking at everything holistically now. And we can't have, you know, the cultural center, they're not a borough entity. So they're independent of us, so we really have no jurisdiction over them. We hope that eventually they'll want to work with our Cultural Affairs Advisory Board to come up with programming that's going to be, again, inclusive of all the different groups, so we don't have overlap between the schools and yourselves and whatever rec wants to do at that point. So. The rest of the council can certainly offer comments if they want, but that's my thinking of it. Yes?
I think I have a different perspective than the mayor does, but I think that I would leave the type of programming that the library wants to do up to what the library wants to do. I'm hopeful that if you need larger space, that you have a larger community space in which to do it, and I would hope that you would work with the Director of Recreation and Cultural Affairs to make sure that your programming is meeting the needs of all the residents. But I'm not ready to say that I don't think that I think the library should stop their Maker's Day or their crafting programs for adult services or what have you because we're going to have this new space. I have a little bit of a different perspective. Yes, we need to be holistic, but I'm not ready to go as far as to say you should only have book talks and you should only have lecture series because you're a library. So I just want to go on the record to say that. And I'm just making a comment. I'm not going to debate your comments.
Debate because we have a Director of Cultural Affairs.
I understand that. We absolutely do, and we have a Director of Library Services or Director of the Library, and they will work. I'm confident that they will work together. My question, though, about physical make this room. This is going to be made within the existing library space, and where are you ready to talk about where you think that's going to be?
I have a good idea where it's going to go. In fact, when I did the walkthrough with the architect I'd like to hire, I showed him where I thought it would go.
Okay.
And that would be, we'd have to take out some shelving to make the space. We were very blessed with a 14,000 square foot facility that's open floor for the most part. It's very flexible. It's cheaper and easier to do the things that we need to do with that space. But yes, it will be over by the newest addition. I don't know who the addition will be in 1994. The west facing end of that. Facing the back of the building to the left as you enter the building. That's where we envision and it will be within the existing.
Thank you.
I'm not going to tell you what you should do with your space or not, to be quite honest. I think maybe though you might want to wait till let's get this building built and then see what your needs are and how that flows after we add 5 new meeting spaces. It may alleviate the need that you're talking about. And I just look at, you know, the capital requests that you made as part of your budget, children's public service desk, security cameras, computer table, children's circulation desk, chairs, you know, things like that. And I would just say maybe you could better use that money on these capital requests than adding a meeting space when we're adding a 6,000 square foot meeting space. You know, I mean, so that,
Multi-purpose room.
well, but the community center is a big multi-purpose room. So I'm just thinking maybe you could better use that money towards the children's circulation desk that you've talked about versus duplicating what we're already doing. Or at least just hold off then until we get this in the ground and then reevaluate. But, you know, that's just my 2 cents.
All right, well, I'm a pragmatist. I tend to agree with everybody here in parts of what everybody said. I do believe that since we are now talking about building this community center and breaking ground this October, we have plans, we have financing, things are moving forward, that it may be in your best interest to wait a little while longer. However, I also understand from listening to the community that especially a quiet space within the library is indispensable. As far as the displays go, I mean, that necessarily has to take into account the fact that a museum is being built, that a community center is being built, that things will change in this town over the course of the next 2 years in a way that they have not in the past changed over the past 20, 25, 30 years. And they are actually moving. We as a council are telling you they're moving. However, that's not going to really change the fact that you do need a quiet space in the library, that there's a lot of people come in to do work, and yes, there are children who come in after school and they're noisy, but you know what? Children are noisy and they're coming in because it's a necessary for their families or for whatever it is, and you need that space. So, all that being said, I'm certainly personally not going to stand in the way of you guys doing what you feel that you need to do, but I've said this at your meetings as liaison, that I think that perhaps, given that we're investing so much into this new community center, and I think it will alleviate things. I don't think it's going to necessarily, as the mayor, with all due respect, says, the community center has to be used for, you know, this, and the library can only be used for that. I don't think that's necessarily where we as a council and the governing body of this town are going to want to go. But I do think that you have to take into consideration that, you know, some of the events that are now clogging up your agenda will now move. You will have more space available simply by the fact that there's going to be more space in town available. And that your money may be suited to, you know, address some other issues that we will alleviate necessarily by the building of the community center. And, you know, unfortunately, I don't know much about the museum, but I think the mayor at his word that it's being built, and, you know, that may also have an effect. So, you know, those are my 2 cents here.
I'm sorry, just one quick other point, because I failed to mention this earlier when we were talking about the community center, and the mayor brought this up to the architect, was the addition of sort of a teen lounge of sort, which we're actually is getting incorporated into the design. So that, you know, just so you know, a little bit more of my thought process, that there will be this sort of, not even a meeting space, but just sort of a place to sort of direct, you know, some of the older kids who may be a little bit louder away from, you know, people who are actually trying to work or study or whatever, and who just want to like hang out, you know. So there will be that kind of space. But like I said, I'm not going to tell you guys what to do. Just sort of.
So you raised a couple of other issues, like other capital needs of the library. We currently have a program that's getting going at the state level that will provide matching funds to the 2 different districts.
Yeah.
Is there any way we can wrap our needs up and take full advantage of that program that's going on in the state level? I know I'm changing something.
No, yeah, no, I know that the
We have
programs
the
are.
HVAC issue, that's
Yeah.
a big item.
That's going to be incorporated into the community center.
We're planning on
it'll be
taking care of
fixed
it.
as part of that project.
It would be a terrible shame if we were to allow this opportunity, one comes along once every, the last one was 20 years ago, and not take advantage of it, especially since you didn't find out we do have them, investment capital needs.
My concern is not whether you need it or don't need it, that's not my position. My concern, not my thing, but my concern is whether you comply with the statute. And I'm not certain that you're there yet because you're not certain how much it's going to cost. You've given an estimate of $80,000, if I heard correctly.
That's not really an estimate because I'm not an architect.
Okay, so
we
it's,
haven't employed an architect.
all right, so it's more like, so you're coming here and you don't know how much it's going to cost, and you don't know where the funding is going to come. You have potential funding sources, but they're not,
We have one definite source.
and that is your capital reserve.
No, our donated funds, 30,000 plus.
So 30,000 and donated, but the remaining, let's just use the number 80,000 for now.
France has always come through in the past, but, you know, they're funding deals.
Well, I'm saying you're coming here asking for approval that the mayor and council certify how much it's going to cost, how much you're going to put in from your reserves, and where else the money's going to come from. You're not there yet. You're saying possibly a grant, possibly from donations.
No. We have donations.
From 30,000. Earmarked for this
We
program.
have 30,000 right now.
Okay.
There is the potential for more donations.
Potential.
Yeah.
So we count what you have in hand of 30,000. Remaining may come from a grant. Remaining then may have to be bonded for. The debt service. It possibly can. So it's hard for the mayor and council to certify the project without hard numbers. And I understand you're in a position. I don't have an account. I don't have the architect, so he can't give me that thing. But I'm sure he should have given you, and you told him what you want to do, throw some type of number at you, or
No,
you gave him a budget saying this is really what we build me something within $80,000 or $100,000. And then you can go from there. So I just don't know if they're meeting the criteria to bring in front of you as to, this is our plan to fund the project. Give us approval. But it's just, you guys, it's just my thoughts.
So when do you think you can retain the architect, get him to design it, and give you the cost estimate?
Well, if the architect's ready to go.
You don't need our approval for, that's not part of certifying, or is it?
Yeah,
So how do they do it?
that's why we came here.
So how do they do it? They can't have an
Well,
architect to get the number.
If you want to approve them to at least go through the architect and get it, and then come back with a plan, say this is how much it's going to cost, and this is where our funding source is, and then you give approval to go forward with it. You certainly can do that. But before they hire on any construction project, before they even move forward, you have to give them approval to get the architect.
I'd be surprised if he didn't offer a cost estimate. If he knows approximately where you want to put it, he knows what your objectives are, he knows how big it's going to be. They have a pretty good idea about the cost per foot and stuff.
Talk to them about rough numbers about what we had, we both agreed it was a small project. As I understand it though, the service that we would be offering is budgeted. One of the things you were telling us is giving us an accurate number of what this would cost.
Sure, and that, we would need that going forward, but he can give you at least a budget estimate, because there's no sense starting a process if it's going to say, I'll be sure, $200,000, and you only have 30 or 40. So he would be able to tell you, well, this project should be, if you go this range on the low end, this range on the high end, and so then you know where you have to set your budgets. Because then if your budgets don't fit, or if your expectations don't meet the budget, then you have to revise the expectations to either meet the budget, or you have to wait to get more money so you can build what you want.
So, you want to make, I'm
So
making.
it sounds to me like we need, you guys want to still go forward with, and if you want to come up?
Is the board members allowed to speak?
Sure.
Yes, but we're going to adjourn very shortly. Okay, because
Okay, so basically we're at a catch-22, we need the architect's number to move forward. And I'm not sure if you're understanding that what the architect would be giving us a number for is basically the walls and electricity and lighting and things like that. The major part of the room would not actually be those things, it would be furniture, stuff, and I think Darren mentioned that already. So what would happen is you would have your architect come in, and he would give us a cost for the building portion of it. The furniture would be a separate portion. And so what Darren was saying was that the Friends would most likely be able to kick it in for part of the furniture portion, but also in order to take advantage of the grant, we would need that architect's plan with the dollar amount of what those walls and electricity and lighting and so forth would be in order to apply for the grant. So we need the architect's input not only to get a final number, but also to apply for the grant to get the full amount of funding that we could have. So without the architect, not only do we not have a final number, but we also can't apply for the funding that could be available to us.
but you don't know what order of magnitude the cost is going to be, and he should be able to give you that now. That's how we started with the community center. We met with the architect informally before we engaged him, because that's what they will do for you, and we sat down and said, okay, if this is our budget, what can we build? And that's how we were able to come to, the size and what we're doing at the community center. So, I don't see this process any different. Again, I think if, the furnishings aside, they would know the cost of the furnishings too, because the architects usually specify them. So, I think I said, he can give you a range saying, yeah, the construction's gonna be this base amount. And then you can go from, A to Z in terms of how you want to furnish it. We're going through the same thing with the community center. There'll be an allowance for the furnishings and technology and all those kind of things. And we'll get what we can get based on what our budget is. So I think it's a similar approach to this. You don't know, if you don't know if it's 50,000 or 150,000, that, to me, that would be an issue. If you don't know what.
I'm sorry. Do you have the money on hand to pay the architect?
Yeah.
So, well, you're planning on paying him from the 30,000, that's what I want.
So we can make the motion to approve,
Yes.
that retaining an architect, until what point?
Architect comes back with his report. If they're satisfied and they think they can put a funding plan in place to move forward with the project, they'll come back in front of you and you'll certify the project based on his funding plan, how much it's going to cost, where the exact money is going to come from, and then you'll give them the go-ahead if you so choose.
So work for you?
Works for me, you guys are in charge.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ask for motion to adjourn work session because we have council people who need to leave shortly and we need to get through some of these public business.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We go right into our regular meeting.
Mayor, you're gonna get this on Tryon State in a moment.
Okay. Let's call this meeting order. This is the regular meeting of the Mayor and Council, Tuesday, February 13th, 2018. Can I please ask everybody to rise for a moment of silent prayer? Councilwoman Christie, please lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in Borough Hall, by email to Ridgewood News, the record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same, as provided by law of a schedule including the date and time of this meeting. I'd like to remind all members of the public, we have 3 fire exits in the council chambers, 1 on each side of the dais and 1 in the rear. Roll call, please.
Here.
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 Here. Okay. We got a motion to approve the minutes of the mayor and council regular meeting of January 22nd.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No proclamations of warrant. Motion open to public for discussion on any item on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're open to the public. If you have a question or comment regarding a specific agenda item, there'll be another opportunity to address the council at the end of the meeting. Seeing none, a motion to close, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I have one appointment on this evening. I'm appointing Michael Cray to the Class 4 Seat 2 to the Land Use Board. He is currently serving as an alternate, and he'll finish a term that will expire 12/31/2021. Appointment and personnel changes. Motion to approve the hire of Sarah Alatis Gunnan as a circulation library assistant, 20 hours per week, $11 per hour, with a 6-month probationary period effective February 13, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to approve the salary change of Anthony Roman, patrol officer, from an annual salary of $81,255 to patrol officer 13th grade, $89,661, effective February 7th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to approve the salary change of Renata Sanchez, patrol officer, from an annual salary of $81,255 to patrol officer 13th grade, $89,661, effective February 7th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to approve the separation of Ryan Lacaste, labor in the Department of Public Works, effective February 5th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to approve the hire of Katia Minaya as a part-time accounts payable clerk at an hourly B-scale probationary rate of $16, 25 to 29 hours a week, with a 6-month probationary period, effective February 14, 2018.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm going to read these 3. Motion to approve the hire of Gabriel Colucci, Ryan McGee, and Mark Vitello as part-time police dispatchers, all at an hourly rate of $16, all with a 6-month probationary period effective February 14th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have in the agenda listed some correspondence that's available through the clerk's office if anyone's interested. We also have on file monthly reports, the annual debt statement for 2017, Beautification Committee for January, and the Library Board of Trustees for February. We have 2 ordinances on for one of the first reading. Ordinance 1815, Madam Clerk, please read by title.
Ordinance 18-5, it is ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank for the calendar year 2018.
This is something we do annually. It's part of the statutory or the budget laws of the state, where we can allow the council to have higher appropriation authority. Not that we actually go to that limit, but it allows us to build up a cap bank so we can actually offset some costs. Otherwise, I forgot what was the inflation rate this year?
2.5.
2.5%. A little more reasonable than they have been in the last couple of years, but still, sometimes it's a little too close, and we need that little extra room for consideration if needed. So that's what that's for. Can I have a motion to adopt ordinance 18-5 on first reading?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Ordinance 18-6.
Ordinance 18-6, an ordinance to amend ordinance 18-3, to fix the salary, wage, and compensation of officers and employees of the Borough of Redmond and County of Bergen in the state of New Jersey for the year 2018.
And this ordinance is going to modify our salary tables to increase the range for a Director of Recreation and Cultural Affairs. At the beginning of the process, when Bobby announced he was retiring, we had asked the clerk's office to conduct a salary survey to see what other rec directors were making based on their level of experience, their types of background, and we felt that so we can attract the best quality and qualified people for this position, we needed to up the salary, so that's what this is for. Motion to adopt this on first reading, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 And I should say the upper salary is 72. It was 72,000. The lower is 40.
That's way down.
One ordinance up for second reading. Madam Clerk, ordinance 1804.
Ordinance 1804, a bond ordinance to authorize the engineering design phase of the construction and reconstruction of curbs on existing sidewalks at portions of Frederick Place and Oxford Terrace Phase 3 in by and for the Borough of Bridge in the County of Bergen, State of New Jersey. A sidewalk resolution to appropriate the sum of $4,800 to pay the cost thereof to make a down payment to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation and to provide for the issuance of bonds for the issuance of bonds.
And this is the bond ordinance that allows us, the boroughs have a long-standing policy of when we get grant work that's benefiting a particular area, that the people who directly benefit are assessed a small portion of the engineering fees, and this is what this ordinance allows us to do. Can I please have a motion to open the public hearing on this ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? For open for public comment on ordinance 1804. Seeing no comments, motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to adopt ordinance 1804.
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 We have resolutions by consent 18-75, 18-84, and number 1886. Would any member of council like any of these pulled out for individual discussion and or vote? If not, I'll take a motion to approve those resolutions by consent.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilman Barone, if you please read and move resolution 18-85, payment of bills.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas vouchers for the payment of goods and services rendered to the Borough of River Edge have been received, and whereas each bill has been checked by the receiving department, approved by the Chief Financial Officer and Borough Clerk, and reviewed by the 3 members of the Finance Committee, therefore be it resolved, the bills as listed now be confirmed for payment from the appropriate funds as follows: current account $6,727,681.99, capital account $14,830.34, recreation account $771.08, animal welfare account $199.80, trust other developers account $15,155, trust other account $8,835, open space account $350. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You can be an auctioneer.
I know some people have.
Can I open, motion open to public, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Would any member of the public like to make any comment or any question of council? Yes, ma'am. We're gonna have to adjourn, but we'll still listen to you, okay, because we're losing our form.
I have to.
No, it's fine. Motion to adjourn. Yeah. So we'll be fine. Motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
We lost our quorum, but we will still, and we'll still record.